Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss about what is DNS and how DNS works. What is the role of DNS in the system? If you are a backend engineer, if you want to learn system design, then this is a very important and must topic. So what is DNS? Well, the full form of DNS is domain name system, or at some places you might find as domain name server. Okay, so we will learn that what is domain name system in this video. So let's get started. So we have studied that when two computers want to communicate with each other, let me add a computer so that I can make you understand. Okay, so these are the two computers, and when they want to communicate with each other, they uses an address which is known as IP address, and we know this. So when they want to share some data, some files with each other, they identify each other through IP addresses only, right? We know this thing. In the same way, let me add a server. Suppose this is a Google server, okay? And you want to open the Google website. So this is your laptop. Let me add a laptop. Okay, this is your laptop, and if you want the website, you must request the website from the server, and the server will respond with the HTML file so that you can open the website on your browser, right? But this server is also a computer, definitely. All the systems like your IoT devices, your smartwatches, which connects with the internet, your computers or laptops, your servers, everything communicates with an IP address. We know that thing. So in the same way, this server will also be having a IP address, right? So if I want to request something from the Google server, then I must know the IP address of this server. Suppose the IP address is 172.18.2.1. Okay, this is the IP address of the server. So I must know that what is the IP address, then only I can communicate with the server of Google. And suppose this is the IP address of Google server, and then there will be a Facebook server, there will be an Instagram server, there will be YouTube server, there will be LinkedIn server, there will be different servers for different companies, and everyone will be having a different IP address because that will be unique. So are you going to remember all those numbers so that you can open those websites on your browser? Definitely not, right? Because as a human being, it's much tougher to remember numbers as compared to names. And that's why we introduce domain names. And what is domain names? Domain names is like google.com, is like youtube.com, and much more. Okay, so now you have understood that, okay, we can't remember the IP addresses of different servers because there are tons of websites. So that's why we call them by a name. Yes, it's just for human beings, but computers only understand numbers, right? So how these names are converted to an IP address, and this is what a domain name system does. It converts a domain name like google.com, youtube.com to an IP address of their server. I hope that's clear, but let's break it down more. So suppose you have a browser, okay, and when you enter google.com in your browser, oh, this is very much big. Just a second. Okay, so this is your browser, and when you type google.com here, what actually happens? So when you type google.com and you hit enter, the first request goes to an internet service provider. And internet service provider, who is your internet service provider? It can be Airtel, it can be Jio, it can be your Wi-Fi provider. Any of those companies are your internet service providers. And then you request, hey, my ISP, can you give me the IP address of google.com? These internet service providers has domain name servers, a dedicated server which then converts this domain name into an IP address. So this ISP calls the DNS server, or I should say DNS resolver. Okay, so they have a DNS resolver. The ISP forwards the request to a DNS resolver. The DNS resolver then sends a request to a root server, which is only 13 in the whole world. And what does this root server do? This root server returns the IP address of top level domain server. What I mean, this server doesn't have the IP address of google.com. Okay, this server doesn't have the IP address of google.com, but it does have the IP address of the server which manages top level domain servers like .com. So it returns the top level domain server IP address. Okay, what is top level domain? Top level domains are .com, .in, or .org. These are top level domains. Okay, and the server which manages all these domains are different. So the root server says, I don't have the IP address of google.com, but I have the IP address of a server which manages .com domains. So DNS resolver says, okay, thank you. Now I will contact to top level domain server. So there is a different server which is TLD, top level domain server, and suppose it's .com right now in our case, which is google.com. So now the DNS resolver goes to this top level domain server and says, hey man, do you have the IP address of google.com? The top level domain says, no man, I don't have the IP address of google.com, but I can give you a server IP address which has all the data related to google.com. So the DNS resolver says, okay, then give me. So the top level domain returns back an IP address of a name server. Now here comes a third server, which is name server. Okay. And this is very important, and it is also known as authoritative server. So now the DNS resolver again comes to the name server that, hey name server, do you have the IP address of google.com? And this name server has all the details related to google.com. So it returns the IP address of google.com to DNS resolver. Now, after a lot of headache and after a lot of request, we finally got the IP address of google.com. And then it returns to the ISP, and the ISP returns the IP address to us. The website is not yet opened. Okay, now our browser directly communicates to that IP address, which is the Google server. So let me add a server here with that IP address, and then we get the website. So behind the scenes, all these things happens in milliseconds. Can you imagine? All these things happens in milliseconds. Now I told you one thing, that the name server has all the details related to google.com. So what are other details? Like what are the all details? Is there any other details apart from IP address? Yes, the name server doesn't only have the IP address of google.com, it has a lot of other details, which we say as DNS records. So now let's focus on records, that what are the types of records and why they are important. Now let's see what are the details that are stored in the name servers for google.com. Okay, so the details are also known as records. A single record will have the name of the record, the value of the record, the type of the record, and the time to live for that record. And now what are these? Okay, now each record will be having these 4 fields which are very important, and even in this type is very much important. So basically there are records type, and the first record type is a record. This record is very important because this only tells that if someone is coming for google.com, then return them the IP address, suppose 172.18.1.1. Okay, so this a record only holds the domain name with the IP address, and there are other records also. So what are the other records? Before moving ahead to the other records, we have to clarify that a record only stores the IPv4 address. And if you want to store the IPv6 address, why IPv6 address? Because some servers may have the IPv6 address also. So to store them, we will be having another record type, which is 4a record, and it will be storing our IPv6 address. Okay, so now this will be converted to IPv6 address. So this will be IPv6 address. So for google.com, the a record will look something like this. The name will be google.com. The value will be 172.18.1.1. The type will be a, and the time to live will be 60 seconds. We will discuss more about time to live. And to store the IPv6 address, the name will be google.com only, and then the value will be changed. Like it will be there will be the IPv6 address. So the record has changed. So if any requests are coming to see the IPv6 address for google.com, then this record will be used to map the IPv6 address. And if someone is looking for IPv4 address for google.com, then this record will be used. So we have successfully discussed 2 records. Now let's move ahead to the third record, which is known as CNAME record. CNAME record is also widely used record, and CNAME records point one domain to another domain. It points one domain to another domain. So where are these CNAME records used? So suppose Google has a subdomain abhi.google.com. And if someone is coming to abhi.google.com, then that user should be redirected to iamabhinav.dev website. This is a different domain and this is a different domain. So CNAME records are used to point the user from one domain to another domain. And the record will look something like this. The name will be abhi.google.com, sorry, .com. The value will be I am abhinav.dev. The type will be say name record, and the time to live will be 80 seconds. Let me move here so you can understand it. Okay, so this will be the record which will be stored in the name server. Now we have discussed A record, 4A record, C name record, and the next record is MX record, which is very important for mail. So suppose you have a Gmail, abhi@gmail.com. So this domain is used here. And this MX record tells, okay, if any mail is coming to google.com or gmail.com, then which server IP address is used? Suppose it will be 172.18.2.2, because this server will be different from this server. This will be serving the HTML page or website, and this will be dedicated to handling the mail. So this MX record tells that, okay, if any mail is coming to this domain, then if any mail is coming to gmail.com, or let's take it google.com only so that you can easily understand and there will be no confusion. So if any mail is coming to abhi@google.com, then MX records will be fetched that, okay, the mail is coming, which server will handle this mail, and we get the IP address of the server. After the MX record, the third record is TXT record, or also known as text record, and this record is mostly used to store the arbitrary data about the domain. So what do you mean by arbitrary data? Sometimes if I'm using AWS or any other stuff in which I have to verify my domain, verify means that yes, this domain belongs to me, I am the admin of this domain, then I have to verify my domain for the providers. So in those cases, I use TXT record or text record, and these were the most important DNS records. So when the request comes to a name server, and if the request is requesting an IPv4 address, the A record is used. If it is requesting for an IPv6 address, the 4A record is used. If the request is coming to abhi.google.com and it forwards to any other domain like this one, abhi.google.com forwards to I am abhinav.dev, then for that CNAME record is used. And for a mail request, if a mail request is coming to the server, then MX records are used that, okay, this mail should be handled by which server. And if a verification request is coming, then TXT records are used. And in this way, this name server holds all the details about google.com. So when you get the IP address through this such a long flow, you directly communicate with the server then, and the website opens on your browser. And I hope this whole explanation tells you that, okay, how DNS system works and why it's important to understand, because in production you have to change the IP, how you can load balancing the stuff. You can have multiple A records, multiple 4A records, multiple CNAME records. So this is how the whole stuff works, and I hope it's clear to you. If you have any doubts, you can comment me. I will definitely answer your doubts, your queries. And that's it. Thanks for watching.